Well, even on this show and all around the world, there's been a lot of conversation surrounding domestic abuse with the release of the movie It Ends With Us. Now, no matter how you feel that DV was portrayed in the film, the most important thing to remember is that it's an all too common occurrence. More than 1 in 3 women in the U.S. have experienced rape, physical violence, and/or stalking by a partner. 1 in 3. Let that sink in for a moment. Because thankfully there is help, and we want to highlight one of those agencies today. Lifewire is a Bellevue-based nonprofit dedicated to helping take victims out of their situations and supporting them as they work to build new lives. And I am joined by their director for survivor-driven services, Karlah Rami. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for what you do.
I appreciate that.
And I want to get into that, but first, you're very passionate about this because you've been in the position before. Is it okay if I ask you what you experienced?
Absolutely. I would say, in early 2000s, I would say I'd had a perfect life. I was married, owned a home, had 2 beautiful children. We were managing small businesses, successful small businesses. It was great. But underneath, my husband was dealing with a lot of unresolved trauma. And without the resources he needed, he was using alcohol and other substances to cope with the pressures. And that's when the nightmare for me began. And it started with harsh words, and then verbal abuse, and then tactics of fear. Arguments in the car turned into revving the vehicle up and speeding, threatening to go off the road with my children and I in the vehicle.
Oh my God.
And it just became unmanageable. And the whole time I thought, this is just a bump in the road in our marriage, and we can save it, we can help. And then I came home one day with resources, I thought, to help us. And I was met with brutal violence. And I knew that it was time and it was necessary for me to leave, or else my life would be in danger.
Gosh. Yeah. Okay. It gives me the chills, because I think that as women, when we go through these things, we don't necessarily recognize it as domestic violence right away. You hear that, you're like, that's not me. I'm not that person, until we realize that there are so many layers of it. And they're all so damaging. Whew. What made it difficult to leave your situation?
Not knowing. Not knowing. You know that domestic violence, there's a stigma, right? It's physical abuse. And because there wasn't any physical abuse, it was all emotional abuse and tactics of fear and control, financial abuse. I didn't recognize it. I thought it was a bump in the road in our marriage, that this is something we could fix through therapy or some other means. So I just didn't know and didn't have the resources until now I understand that there's so much more complexity to the abuse that you're able to experience.
I want to move on to the help, but I have to ask you first, because I've never heard this term, financial abuse. What does that mean?
That is when somebody is trying to wield control over you with your finances. You may not have access to your financial records. You may not have bank accounts under your name. The house may not be under your name. Utilities might not be under your name. They just use financial power to gain control over what you have access to. So leaving makes it that much difficult if you don't have the financial means to do so. So, but you found a way. You were brave enough when you decided that you and your kids couldn't wait any longer. How did you find out about Lifewire? Like, how did you connect? A friend of mine gave me the number of the Eastside Domestic Violence Program, which is now Lifewire. And that friend said, I think these folks can help. And I called. And I got an advocate who was kind and thoughtful and caring and listened and believed me and gave me all of the information and resources that I needed, mental health support, diapers and formula for my children, housing options, and really gave me the tools that I needed to start figuring out how to stumble through safety, stability, and healing, and becoming something that my children could grow from. It wasn't easy. No. But it was necessary. It was necessary. Let's talk about some of the other services that they offer. I know they are now the largest domestic violence housing provider in King County, serving more than 3,300 survivors a year. What are some of the other services you provide? Well, it's actually more than 4,600 in a year. 4,600? 4,600, which is staggering numbers, sobering numbers. That's amazing. But we know that domestic violence is the leading cause of homelessness. And so to that end, we have several housing options. We have a new shelter. It's a 25-unit shelter, and we offer individual units for families to begin their own path to healing in a confidential way with dignity and hope and all the wraparound services that you need. So we're very proud of that option available for families. We also have emergency shelter and other short-term and long-term housing options because not every family needs the same thing, and we need to have resources for families to stabilize.
That's amazing. If it is hard. We talked about how hard it is to leave, and I think there's something like it takes 8 times.
Right.
What would you say if you could speak directly to someone at home right now who is listening to this, holding back tears, which I am trying to do right now too. It's so important, the work you do. What would you say to them and what you experienced?
I would say there's help. There's people out here who really care. There's employers, there's community centers, there's folks at school, there's people that you know around you that are willing to help, and we're here as a resource. You can call us, you can reach out to us, an email, text, you can go to a physician and ask them for safe, confidential space to give us a call, and we can help figure out what options there might be available for you, and even help you to understand if what you're experiencing is abuse and what may be possible for you.
All right, excuse your hormonal TV host. What can we all do to help? I mean, if we've not experienced this, if we're not part of something like this, but we're all watching here going like, what can we do? What can we do?
You can go on our website and learn more about our prevention and education programs. This is a pillar of what we offer right now. It's going to take all of us to understand the root causes of domestic violence to combat and eventually end domestic violence in our community. So we offer domestic violence one-on-one trainings for workplaces, faith leaders, community members, anybody that's willing to come and learn with us to understand what we need to do, build to prevent it. You can also donate, you can also volunteer, and you can also come and be part of our annual gala that gives you an opportunity to learn more about our services, and all of our proceeds go to supporting survivors.
That's incredible. Thank you so much for being so vulnerable and sharing your story and coming on here today and everything that you do for so many people. What an incredible organization. So again, mark your calendar for October 26th. That is the World of Hope Gala and Auction benefiting survivors of domestic violence and their families. You know, that's a night out that you can feel good about.